always, like I said, I'm kind of a creative person in general. I've done a lot with music. I've always written, like, little short stories and stuff. I used to always write these books for my dad growing up. Like,
Aww.
these just little storybooks, and I would illustrate them, and he would always act like they were great. Just fantastic.
Because he's your dad.
No, honestly, if I start talking about my dad, I will start crying. I love him so much.
I'm in that club as well.
I love my dad so much. And so I've always wrote stuff. And I've always liked the idea of everyone I've ever met with children talk about how kids will, like, lock on to, like, one thing. Like, a little girl will watch Frozen every day for a year or something like that. You know how kids get. And I'm like, it'd be cool if a kid, like, read, that was, like, Batsy Busy Day was their book or something like that.
That's my friend Isaac Clarke. He's the creator of Music with Friends, a mini music review show where he talks about everything he's been listening to lately. Isaac is also a published author and wrote the children's book Batsy's Busy Day, which I illustrated back in 2020. My name is Molly Perry, and I'm a graphic designer at Tennessee Tech University. I know lots of talented, funny, creative people, and on this podcast, we're going to be meeting a lot of them. Without further ado, this is episode 13 of Molly Made Friends. Thank you for joining me.
Do I understand the need to, like, I think some of the pronouns can be kind of like, okay, like, at some point it's, you know, maybe like, how far do we need to go? But also at the same time, who cares what my opinion is? I haven't lived those people's experience, you know? Mm-hmm. So all I know is, I don't want pronouns to come between me and that person having a friendship or a relationship. So I will call you they, them, their, his, ex, e. I don't care.
And at the end of the day,
you know?
I have never understood the immediate decision of some people whenever they're confronted with this to be like, no, I'm not going to call you that. Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
No.
It's honestly, common decency to just call someone what they want to be called.
Out of anxiety, if anyone came up to me right now and said, call me freaking Donkey Teeth, I'd be like, okay, Donkey Teeth. Like, I don't know. Later, after the interaction, I'll be like, why did I do that? Why did I listen to them immediately? But just out of anxiety, I would call them that. But
Donkey Teeth is 100% a non-binary roommate that is going to say that you're bullying them for asking them to do the dishes.
Dude, Donkey Teeth would be a cool, like, non-binary. I'm trying to think of more, like, non-binary names. Jazz.
Kai.
Dude, Kai's an awesome one.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm probably getting off.
No, you're fine.
Elrond.
Elrond
No, that's a character from Lord of the Rings, but...
Wait. Oh, yeah. I was thinking of L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah.
The founder of Scientology.
Yeah. Shout-outs to him. Actually, not shout. That's a cult.
Okay. I was not aware of this. Did you know that he has written a lot of books?
Science fiction books.
Yeah.
Like Pulp Fiction, science fiction books, yeah.
Didn't know that. I guess then he said, hey, let's make a religion about this where we all wear naval costumes.
Gosh, I hate Scientology so much.
Are you Leah Remini-ing right now?
No, I was never in Scientology. Honestly, though, I have to admit, as a Christian, I believe a virgin gave birth to the Savior of the world, so take this for what it's worth. So I would never be convinced to believe BS.
Never, ever.
I legit believe that. If any Christians are listening, I am a Christian. The thing is, though, Scientology, you have to pay like millions of dollars, and if you leave, they like hunt you down. And a lot of people, where's Shelley? Where's Shelley Miscavige or Miscarriage or whatever? Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I know that's traumatic for a lot of people.
I thought it was funny.
But yeah, like people disappear, and then if you leave, they like hassle you and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Or they're kind of like Mormons where they just never speak to you again.
Yeah.
Yeah, hold your family hostage.
I will say now that we're talking about other people's religion and judging them for it, Mormons, every Mormon I've ever met has been awesome person.
Oh yeah, they're super nice.
Super, and they're all hot. I've never met an ugly Mormon.
Yes.
So part of me is like, there's something to this. Maybe it's
Yeah.
for no caffeine. I don't know. And they're all rich.
Yeah.
They're all hot. They're all nice. They are a little bit right wing. So I'm like, okay.
And
whatever.
racist.
They were racist. Really racist.
But they're so nice
Up
to
until
us.
1979, yeah. I will say, there was a guy I worked with. So if this makes it in the podcast, I worked at a outlet store / methadone clinic in it wasn't really a methadone clinic, in Rockwood, Tennessee, called Burt's Outlet. It's terrible, but it's basically a TJ Maxx. If you got a TJ Maxx at a dollar store, if that
you
makes any sense.
took a TJ Maxx and shoved it off a cliff.
Yeah, it's kind of like if they put TJ Maxx in a Grand Theft Auto, you get Burt's Outlet. But anyway, I worked there, and how in the world they ended up here? There was a guy named Carson Woods. He was a Mormon from Idaho, and his parents bought like a property on the lake in Roane County, and they were trying to sell it, but his parents went back to Idaho to be with the rest of the kids. They had obviously like 10 kids. And he and his brother were the two oldest siblings. So they were living at the lake house, regardless. Him and his brother were living at this lake house. They're Mormons from Idaho, and they needed jobs, so he worked at Burt's Outlet. The sweetest, nicest guy. I mean, an absolute peach. Cute as a button. Awesome dude. Wholesome. And his parents had like 7 kids, and they adopted like 4 more from Africa. Like they had boatloads of cash. I don't know how they. I don't know what they did. I asked him what his parents
How
did.
do you wind up at Burke's?
I don't know. He was a good worker, super nice, never said a bad word about anybody. And I was asking him about like some of the Mormon beliefs and stuff. And I was legit asking. I wasn't trying to be like this all kind of stuff. Like
This
BS.
is pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, but part of me like was like trying not to like laugh a little bit. And I'm like, Carson, buddy, I respect. And we did find common ground. He believes in Jesus. I believe that Jesus is a savior. He does too. So we have some common ground. But part of me's like, hey, sounds crazy to me, man. But we both agree. So we did find common ground.
You said, hey, I'm going to have to stop you right there at posthumous baptism.
I'm like, so what do you believe about polygamy? But no, Carson was such a cool dude. But no, anyway, I don't know how we got to talk about Mormons.
No, you're good.
I will
Mormons
say
are fascinating.
they are fascinating.
Have you seen, you probably haven't, but have you seen The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives?
No.
You would, I don't know, something tells me you would secretly enjoy it.
Oh, I probably would.
It's so dramatic and horrible. They're horrible people, but
They're the only horrible Mormons.
I don't know if you remember this controversy, but on TikTok in like 2021, there was a mom who went viral for doing a TikTok dance about her baby recovering with RSV.
I mean, cool. I'm glad the baby's fine, but I don't feel like a TikTok dance is the way to.
But she is the most famous of this group of moms.
I know there's a big Mormon mom TikTok.
They
presence.
invented Mom Talk.
Really?
Yeah, that's their claim to fame.
Well, I know there's also like a big, like Christian girly following on
Yes.
Instagram. Now, also Music with Friends does have a TikTok. It's literally just reposted from my Instagram, so it's not like interesting. But I did try to get on TikTok, and I hate that app. I hate TikTok so much. But no, so the Christian presence on social media, I'm surprised how big it is. I thought it'd probably be smaller than that.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
No, say it.
Well, culty type things.
Some culty stuff, but also
Do
some
like to use social media.
They do. They do. I might be in a cult, to be honest.
Well, okay.
Well, no, I think what defines a cult is that, like, you have unwavering devotion to a leader that, and some could say Christ is that leader, but also Christ isn't in the world right now. Like, he doesn't have a physical body. I can't go visit him physically.
I mean, would an idea still count?
I don't know. I don't know.
That's something to look into.
Something to look into. Maybe I'm in a cult.
I
don't know.
do think that all world religions are a form of cults. I also think that the military-industrial complex is a cult.
Oh, patriotism is so...
Yes.
Also, anybody on the podcast listening, I am an anti-patriot. Sorry.
Don't apologize
Like,
for that.
I'm very... Like, America definitely has a lot of advantages that other countries have. I do not want to make that unclear. Like, I'm very privileged to live in the United States. But also, like, we can calm down about it a little bit.
Yes. Just
Calm down about it a little bit.
Well, do you want to...
Officially get started?
Yeah, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So, my name's Isaac Clark. I'm anti-vax. No, just kidding. I'm not anti-vax. I'm a music fan / video game fan / friend of Molly's.
Yeah.
I live in Knoxville, Tennessee with my wife. And me and Molly went to high school together and middle school together. And we're friends, so...
And you have a cat.
I do have a cat. Its name is Smudge. It's a girl cat. It has been spayed and neutered. Not
pet
both.
ownership.
It is not an intersex cat. It is a female, and it has been spayed. And
Did you name her Smudge because of the little white part on her chest?
no. So for context, my wife is a physical therapist, and she works with a lot of old people, and they have a lot of free time. And so an old person that my wife works with made a list of potential cat names. And Smudge was on the list, which I like. I think it's a cool name. Also on the list was Carbon and Sparkplug. Also,
so
though,
sweet.
there were like normal names on the list too, like Marcy and like stuff. So I think Carbon would have been awesome. To have a cat named Titanium.
His middle name's Neutral.
Carbon neutral. But no, Smudge. We named her Smudge because an old person put her on a list. But I like the name. It's a good name.
That is a really good name. Shout out to that old person.
Yeah. No, old people are awesome. I feel like it's easy. When like you see people talking to old people like they're babies, you're like, "Hey, Grandpa, how are you?" Part of me is like, if I ever get to a point where someone is diminutively talking about me like this, and for all listening, I mean this. I consent to this. Kill me. Shoot me in the head. I don't
Just
care. End it. If my brain is to a point where I respond positively to diminutive talk like that.
Or they can trick you into holding a doll and thinking that it's your baby.
Yeah.
Like you're an orangutan in an exhibit.
Yeah. Yeah, feel free to end my life.
You can't chew your food anymore.
I like how we're already talking about this, and I just introduced myself.
Hey, I'm into it.
So.
As someone who is raised by their grandmother, I have a very natural affinity for the elderly. I couldn't imagine living an entire damn life and being spoken to like that.
Yeah, it would... I don't know why people do. I've never, to my knowledge, spoken to... Like, you have to sometimes speak slower and louder because they might not be able to hear you. Well, you know, old people's brains sometimes work slower, but no, that would be insane to, like, shoot, like, a Japanese militant in the head in the 40s and then get, like, talked to like a baby by your grandson that's, like, a software engineer. How annoying. Be like, what does your job do?
Your grandson who vapes.
Named Skylar.
Back in my day, we were smoking Charlestons.
Yeah, so I can't...
Named Skylar.
I've also been fortunate that all of my grandparents, all my grandparents have passed away, but they were all, like, mentally clear up until their death. And that's... No, I would hate to, like... have like a mentally degenerative, even if you have like obviously ALS is terrible, but your mind is at least okay. It'd be terrible to have Alzheimer's.
Talk about a real prison.
No, talk
Just stuck in your own body.
Yeah, well, that's speaking of really good guys, Stephen Hawking recently seen parachuting onto Epstein Island.
I believe it.
They were afraid he was going to get locked-in syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
Where he can't, like, move at all. Now, he did pass away. I was going to say unfortunately, but actually probably fortunately.
Yeah.
I think
He
I
was
probably
pretty old.
and also probably a pedophile. Maybe.
Was it before or after the wheelchair?
I don't know. The wheelchair probably gave him some clout, I would say.
A false sense of security.
Anyway, yeah, no one would suspect him. Robot speaking. Hi, how are... Anyway, yeah, he passed away, so he didn't get locked-in syndrome. And he also never got to face possible criminal allegations of being a pedophile. Sorry, I don't have a lot of respect for Stephen Hawking. He cheated on, his wife, who literally kept him alive while he was... His body... Now, his end stage of ALS, was very slow progression. But, the first part where he first got in the wheelchair, she... helped him during all of that, and then he cheated on her.
He cheated on her?
Yeah, and I was like, also to the woman, what's going on?
Men are dogs. That's crazy.
But, yeah, you cheated on her. Have you ever seen the movie Eddie Redmayne was in?
Yeah.
He plays Stephen Hawking. Yeah, he cheated on his wife.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
How did he do it?
Yeah, what's necessarily appealing about him? I guess he's got a lot of money. But, yeah, this podcast has already kind of went one way.
Okay, tell me about the house that we're sitting in, because you just bought it, right?
I didn't just buy it. We bought it actually over 2 years ago.
That was 2 years ago?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Oh my God.
So this is a 16 square foot, not 16 square foot, 1,600 square foot.
We're standing in a closet.
I live here with my 4 roommates. We're all software engineers. I don't know why I'm on the tech bro thing right now.
But it's funny.
No, I bought this house in June of 2022. 5% interest rate. It was very hard to buy a home. Buying a home sucks. Also, I'm very privileged to own a home. I guess we're going to get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
How was I able to buy a home?
That's what I would like to know.
So, 5% interest rate is right at the border where you don't want it to go any higher than that. It's a decent interest rate, but it's not great. But the big thing is just how did I have the down payment for it? So it's going to be a little bit of a long story, but I'll tell it.
Yeah.
So I have been very, very privileged in my life. I didn't grow up with money, but I grew up with parents that had very middle class amounts of money, but were very wise with it. Mm-hmm. And taught me very well. And my dad, he always told us, he's like, if you graduate high school with all A's, I'll buy you a reasonable $20,000 or less car after you graduate. And at the time I graduated, I was already I'd already purchased a car from my dad. He gave it to me at Kelley Blue Book value. Didn't cut me a deal, which I respect now, but at the time I was like, come on,
Dad.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's one of those boomer lessons where yeah, you don't get anything handed to you, which I appreciate now because it taught me to value money, and I take better care of the car now than if I had just been given. But he was like, do you want me to buy you a car? And I was like, no. And he was like, well, what do you want me to do with this money? I was like, let's just kind of leave it. Because I know if I just had $20,000 at my disposal, I've always been very good with money. I think it's actually just me being anxious. I'm actually kind of stingy, I think. I think I spend too little.
Sometimes anxiety pays off sometimes.
Because I'm afraid of not having any.
Yeah.
Because I know how, unfortunately, you have to have money in society. But, so I invested it, and that investment grew, not a crazy amount. It was a very normal amount it was about $19,000, which I realize is so incredibly blessed. And I have done nothing to earn it. I'm very, very, very fortunate. So, anyway, I get my current job and worked that for a few years, and me and my wife were talking about getting married, but we need to have a house. And I wanted to buy a house on one income because that way you're just not as locked in. You know what I mean? If you buy with 2 partner incomes, if somebody loses their job, then you're in a mess. So at the time, my job paid me about $45,000 a year, which I'm, again, very thankful. A lot of people don't make that, but it's not a ton of money.
No.
And this is back in 2022, so inflation hadn't completely run us
ruined
all
everything.
Yeah, so $45,000 doesn't go near as far, but it's for someone that was 22 years old or 24, however old it was. It was a very good amount of money in my mind. I don't live like a very lavish lifestyle, but so I called the people that had helped my sister and her husband buy their house. He's a really awesome old guy. His name's Fred Wright. He's actually passed away now, but he was so country and just so helpful and stuff. Told him about how much money I was making. And I know I wanted to buy with my income. And for also clarity, my wife is a physical therapist, so she makes more money than me. I was surprised at how much I don't know. I thought physical therapists made a lot more than she does. But again, we're very blessed.
Yeah.
Very blessed. But, and so I was like, I want to buy on my income. That way, whenever Rebecca gets out of school and she starts working, we'll have a lot of like extra cash. Maybe we can pay off the mortgage faster. So told him, hey, I make about $45,000 a year. I've got this initial investment in the bank. And this makes me, I don't want to sound like a finance bro or anything.
No, I mean, if I'm being honest, you probably know more about money than any of my friends. Financial literacy is not very common.
It's because I talked with my dad, who both my parents came from the mud. And again, my mom's an elementary school.
Mud.
My mom's an elementary school teacher. My dad's worked at the facilities at Y12. So it's not like they were like combined. Like they didn't make a ton of money, but they made good money for East Tennessee, I would say. And so they're like, hey, you should probably look into like starting a Roth IRA. I started that. And by the time I was like 24, in the bank, I had about in investments, $80,000.
That's awesome.
Which you don't really want to take it out because it's not growing anymore. But you have assets. So that's what makes you get pre-approved for money. Is the bank's like, okay, we don't need that $80,000, but we know if push comes to shove and you can't pay for this house, we can take that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so it's basically how much you can get. So I make $45,000, but I'm very fortunate to have a lot in the bank as investments. So I asked Fred, hey, write me a letter of pre-approval so we can start getting with a realtor and trying to buy a house. And he said, with your income of $45,000 and the amount in the $80,000 in investment, I say in the bank, it's not in the bank, it's in like the stock market and stuff. He said, this blew my mind. He pre-approved me for like $550,000.
What?
And I was like, sir, that is irresponsible.
Is that how people do it?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, that makes way more sense.
He told me that much money, and I was like, I make $45,000 a year, and I don't want to withdraw from the investment account is if like I need to like retire.
Yeah.
Or I get sick and can't work or whatever. I was like, I should not get pre-approved for that.
That makes so much sense.
And he said, we can loan you that much money if you want to buy a house. And he was honest. I don't recommend doing that.
No.
And this is on just my income. So I was like, okay, given the market at the time, I told him I want my budget to be $240,000, which we ended up going over because the housing market is terrible. And he said that was probably a lot more wise. So anyway, I set in my mind a budget of $240,000, which is incredible to think of. But anyway, so me and my wife start looking at houses. We have a realtor we really like. And we quickly realized $240,000 ain't gonna cut it.
No, especially not in Knoxville.
No. And so we look at over 100. We toured over 100 houses.
Really?
We put in offers on 13. And we were getting outbid by people with cash. A lot of people from out of state, of course. Ugh. Some people buying for rental property. Don't get me... I could talk for hours about how much I hate landlords, so I'm just going to not.
I mean, if you could, you want...
I know, but I want to talk about other stuff more. Anyway, we got the house we're in because we were the first offer on it.
It's lucky.
We gave her asking price what she wanted for it, and we paid $350,000 for this, which is
Wow.
insane. Again, I'm very, very blessed. I did nothing to deserve that. I was, again, very, very fortunate. But, like 10 years ago, this house would have sold for like $130,000.
Yeah.
So it's literally double the price.
Yeah.
And we pay a lot of our income every month for the mortgage for it. And that was at an interest rate of 5% as opposed to like 8%. So, yeah, it was very, very difficult to buy a house. I mean, I'm very happy that I have one. I love the fact that I have a house, but it was legit one of the worst experiences in my life buying a house. It sucked the whole way. I cried all the time. I was crying all the time just because I was so stressed. We were putting in offers on houses where secretly you're kind of like, I don't know if I really want this, but it's
But
kind
it's
of
something.
like
You
it's
gotta
something.
take it.
Like end it.
Yeah.
Almost. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's bad. It was not fun. And you asked me this kind of before the podcast on Instagram. Do I think young people today will ever be able to buy a home? Yes, I think they will. I think it will come a lot later in life.
Yeah.
And I think the homes will be drastically different than the homes our parents and grandparents grew up in. I don't think they're going to be good. I think they're going to be those homes on the street that look all the same. But the thing is, a lot of houses were built in the 90s that looked all the same. They were what's called McMansion houses. Like, as an example, I know a lot of good people live there. There's a community in Kingston called Center Farms.
Yeah.
and those are those type of houses. Nothing wrong with living in a house. People need a place to live.
Next to the sewer plant.
One thing that has helped me, one thing that has helped me in this home buying process is I didn't realize how judgmental I was about where people live.
Oh,
like,
yeah, that's
I was
fair.
like, oh, this person lives in a nice neighborhood. They're probably a jerk. Or this person, yeah, I would usually judge, to be fair to myself, I'd usually judge richer people. But
As you should.
as being like fancy and stuff. But I also realize now, people just need a roof over their head.
Yeah.
You know?
What
sorry,
do you
lost the
think
train of thought.
makes it possible?
To buy a house.
Yeah.
Honestly, again, I can't, if I didn't have the knowledge that I had and that very, very gracious gift from my parents, it would be very hard for me to. Now, I did have a very stable job earning $45,000, which at my age was very good. That did most of the work. And I had good credit. I've had a credit card since I was in college. I always didn't spend much on it, but I paid it off on time, built a good credit score. What makes it possible, I think, now, obviously, you can buy on two incomes if you have a spouse. And, I mean, two incomes, you'll easily get above $45,000, hopefully, full-time incomes. So you can buy a house.
$1 million home.
The thing is, Lord, the thing is, it's literally just exhausting looking for a home. Like, I mean, I was living in Roane County with my parents at the time. I'd drive to Knoxville for 3 hours, tour 3 homes, put in a bid, maybe on one, lose instantly, and do that again like 100 more times over the course of like so long. So, yeah, it gets really tiring. So it's just exhausting. But now the interest rate is even higher.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a buddy of mine, he's got a house that it's a really nice house. But his interest rate is like 0.8%. I'm just like,
Oh
I freaking
my
hate you.
God.
He's older than me, but he bought his house in like 2017 or 18.
Oh my God.
But all that said, I'm very fortunate to own a home. A lot of like Gen Z, and technically I think I am Gen Z, or
Yeah,
like
I think you're like the
the
tail end.
youngest millennial. I don't know. I'm born in December of '95, but
Yeah, you're
the whole
youngest
like
millennial.
nihilism meme of like we'll never be able to afford homes. I don't think that's a meme. I think that's actually just like the rot of society at the point. Like there's I saw a joke about a bunch of people went to Charlie XCX's Brat tour, and there's all these kids, and they're like, we can't afford houses, so we bought tickets to the Sweat tour. And that's funny and like totally cool, but I'm like, also, yeah, kind of. Like
Yeah.
I majored in economics in college, and one thing that I've seen is the commodification of goods, whereas homes have become a commodity of investment as opposed to a utility.
Yeah.
Like, homes should be like water and food, not like stocks and bonds. Mm-hmm. Real estate shouldn't be an investment.
Yeah.
Unless, like, I could see if you like own an apartment near a college where you know no one's going to live for a long time.
Or like commercial real estate.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But when it comes to a place for someone to live.
Yeah, I have a real problem with that.
Spend a life.
Yeah, this is. I am a pretty devout Christian, and in parts of the scriptures, it talks about not lending to your brother with interest. And brother in this instance talks about fellow Christians. And I know some people that profess to be Christians that do have rental property. Mm-hmm. I think that's wrong. I think that's wrong to have. Now, again, if you rent like an apartment to college kids, that's maybe a little bit different. But like renting to a family for what is, let's be honest, passive income. Usually it's these people's like second job or something, and it's an investment opportunity. I've a real issue with that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. If we sell this house and a investment or a renter or a landlord comes to us and offers us X amount of dollars, but a family offers us like half that much, I will sell to the family. And I was telling my dad that, and he was like, yeah, son, we'll see whenever, you see the piece of paper. And I'm like, he just doesn't believe it. And that's fine. He doesn't have to. But,
I mean, it's going to take that mentality to keep things available for people.
Yeah,
to give people a chance.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was devastating. It was devastating to realize that I am on the iceberg of, like, the tip, in my mind. I know in the grand scheme of the U.S. economy I'm not, but, like, in my mind, I was the privileged of the most privileged. Mm-hmm. Because I grew up in Roane County, and I had two parents in my house. Mm-hmm. Two parents that at least just had steady jobs. They weren't even great jobs. They were just steady jobs. Like I said, my mom taught elementary school. But I thought my parents were rich. I mean, growing up in Roane County, we were rich, except when I moved, I went to a Harriman Elementary School, and then I went to a Cherokee Middle School. I was like, oh, we're kind of poor. But I thought, anyway, I feel I come from such privilege, and it was this hard for me. Mm-hmm. I can't even imagine.
There's a program where it's mostly a food bank, but they offer programs for people to try and get out of poverty because it is this incredibly cyclical thing. It's like you're just stuck in this trap. Like, they walked us through this exercise to try and kind of like help you better visualize what it's like day to day in the life of someone who is like on the poverty line or below. Mm-hmm. And it's true, like, one little thing could just ruin everything.
Yeah.
Like, say your car doesn't start that day. Say you lose your job or you get too sick to go to work. Like, it's all over.
Yeah.
Homelessness, I can't remember the percentage of Americans that are like a month away from being homeless. It's a huge amount.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so scary. And yeah, it's going to take the mentality of, I would rather help someone than
it's made
make a bag.
That's, I hate to keep bringing everything back to Christianity, but it guides my moral compass.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm a devout Christian. Greed is a beast that like so many people worship, and they don't realize it. Even if some people claim to be a Christian and they worship greed. They actually worship money. And I mean, I'm stingier than I should be. I should probably donate more. I should do more with my free time and stuff. But at the same time, it's, I don't know where I'm going with that, but
money is the green idol.
It is. And security too. Money is security, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, safety, people, value.
In this country, if you don't have any money, they don't even see you as a person. Yeah,
the whole idea of property value, like being afraid of somebody for property value, like, I don't want this person to live here. I don't want that. Yeah. This is not my opinion, but I've heard people say similar. I don't want a Puerto Rican family blasting music at 11 p.m. because that will bring down my property value.
Yeah.
I'll go on the record here. I do not care about my property value. If you're a Puerto Rican family that likes to play music at 11 p.m. but need a house, you are welcome to live next to me. But you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying, though.
Yes, I do. It's almost like you should care about.
And then that's also intertwined with like racism and stuff. But, yeah, I don't know. It taught me a lot. But
you could have used the Donald Trump example.
What's that?
I think that.
Is that about like Haitians eating dogs and cats and stuff?
Well, there's that, but I think in the 80s, he had some like apartment complexes, and they were largely lived in by black people, and he forced them all out because it was bringing property values down, and he wanted to sell it. He's a great man.
He's a good businessman.
Yeah, yeah.
He tells it like he's a common man. He just gets what everybody.
He tells it like it is.
I think it's so funny how many people hide behind that. They're actually just jerks, but they're like, I'll cut it. I don't sugarcoat things. I worked with so many people, not at my current job, at former jobs, that were actually just mean.
Yes.
But they would always hide behind, they're like, I'm a straight shooter. I'll tell you like it is.
I'm just like, keeping it real.
Actually, you're mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
anyway.
well, speaking about being a Christian and also being a libtard, as you put it.
Yes.
I think that
on most things, to be clear, I'm not like fully. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the two go hand in hand.
They can,
like,
for sure.
I have never understood the stance of, well, I have to vote Republican because I'm a Christian. You know, because, you know, Republicans have kind of hid behind Christianity as like, you know, a shield almost. Like, we're protecting the faith or what, you know, whatever the BS they spout, when in the end, like, Democrats are the ones who started all of these programs to help people in need and yada yada yada. Like, it's never made sense to me.
Yeah, and I do want to say there are legit Christians that are Republicans. I don't want to like take anything away. I kind of hate saying, like, I honestly don't even feel like I'm a Democrat. I just say I'm a liberal.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
that's
the Democrats
fair.
do a lot of BS too.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But I don't know. More conservative people. I think many of them legitimately think they are defending quote unquote Christianity well. I just think I don't think anybody's perfect on it. Either side's perfect on it. Like, if you're pro-life, whatever. But also, how can you be pro-war and, like, sending proxy war in, like, Israel and Ukraine, Russia? You know, like, that ends people's life.
Yeah.
So at least be consistent with your beliefs, you know? And also, I don't get the anti-environmentalist movement, too. Now, I don't think you should, like, worship the earth or dumb stuff like that. But at the same time, it's like... God gave, and I want to be clear, I don't believe in the literal translation of Genesis 1. Like, the earth is older than 6,000 years, folks.
You heard it here first.
Heard it here first. I'm going to give the brave opinion. The earth's older than 6,000 years. But I think it's a metaphor. I think Genesis 1:1 is a metaphor for how humans have decided to take the knowledge of good and evil for themselves instead of trusting God to determine what's good and evil for them. But he says, like, steward the garden and subdue it, meaning to, like, use it, like, grow your food. Like, the earth just produces so much stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, all the food we need's here.
And water. And
for there's enough food for animals, and we can even kill some of the animals and eat them. Like, there's so much stuff that just grows out of, like, life has provided us. So
but
I think,
do they come with a healthy dose of microplastics?
No.
I think not.
And also, I have to be able to sell some of the stuff to somebody else. So
this thing that they could grow.
Yeah, I don't really get the anti-environmental stance on that. Sorry, I'm kind of going on just like a rant.
That's what this podcast is about.
Also, if I think about Jesus' teachings, it's like Jesus also went to the poorest of the poor in his mission. You know, he went to, I mean, he was friends with a ton of prostitutes.
He talked to everybody.
And they weren't necessarily poor, but he talked to tax collectors, which at the time, if you were a tax collector in what is today Israel, Palestine, you were usually a Jew that had basically bent the knee to Rome, which was kind of seen as like being
a traitor.
A traitor. So people hated you if you were a tax collector. Jesus was in with all those, and he didn't ask them, and he was friends with, at the time, before modern medicine, a lot of people that were crippled or had birth defects or things like that. He was friends with all those people, and he didn't ask them before he was kind to them. He didn't ask them, can you work? Okay, so you're actually disabled. Okay, then, I'll love you. You're not just sitting at home playing World of Warcraft, are you? Oh, no, you're actually disabled. He didn't ask if they were on drugs. I know they didn't have drugs back then, but all that stuff, you know. He doesn't say love your neighbor if they work and aren't on drugs. He says love your neighbor.
100%.
And then if they have a drug issue or they're lazy and need to work, love your neighbor first. And then maybe once a relationship's built, we can be like, hey, you know, you probably could work. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, don't love your neighbor if they're like you, you know? Love your neighbor even if they're not.
After you build that relationship, come over to their house with a bowl of soup that says "Get a job."
Get a job. Yeah, the SpongeBob episode. So, I don't know. In my experience, I have found more liberal ideas to be congruent with the Bible. Not all of them. I think there's a lot of liberal ideas around like determine your own truth. I feel like truth can be found, and I think you need to trust God's views of that truth more so than ourselves. So I don't think both sides are like innocent by any means, but in my personal experience, I have found the leftist ideas to align more with what I see as Christianity. And Jesus at the time was a rebel. He was like a political rebel. He's nonviolent, to be fair. I have no idea where the glorification of violence has went in society. Not just like Christian societies, everywhere. It's just so violent.
Well, and for America especially, it's a very American trait
to be violent.
Have.
Because we were founded in revolution, yeah. So,
do you think that Jesus would be a Charlie XCX fan?
I think Jesus would be like, Howard, what instrument is this? Probably not. No, he would be taken aback by it, probably. Yeah. I don't think he would think it's maybe sinful, but I don't know. What music would Jesus listen to? Oh, definitely some chanting.
Okay.
Hymns, I could see. I think Jesus would listen to contemporary Christian music, and he'd be like, your heart's in the right place. Think you're good guys, cool folks. But he's like, music ain't good. I don't think Jesus...
precious.
Yeah, I think he'd be like, yet again, you're all great guys. You're obviously very influenced by Coldplay and U2.
Yeah.
Very heavily influenced by Coldplay and U2. Everybody dresses the same.
I've never actually roared like a lion.
Never have. I did upturn the money changers tables once. That was one time.
Yeah.
One time.
Okay, actually I have a legitimate question. Why do some churches think that you shouldn't have music?
I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of hard for me to reconcile. I mean, I don't judge anybody for it, but the Bible's the Bible's at least clear about singing. I mean, there's a whole verse about singing to the Lord, and then there's so many stories in the Old Testament, which I believe is a lot of metaphor, to be clear. You have to, the thing you have to realize is Christians read the Old Testament through a lens of like Western literature when actually it's ancient Jewish literature. You have to read it like a Jewish person would have read it back then. So it's all full of poetry and metaphor and reflection and stuff like that. But
media literacy, folks.
Yeah, as soon as the Israelites cross the Red Sea, they sing a song. So singing is and these churches do sing, but like also King David, when he's bringing the Ark of the Covenant into the temple at Jerusalem, there's talk about people dancing. To talk about some churches don't like dancing, but like having cymbals and horns and lutes and all those old instruments like that. So I don't necessarily know where they get it, to be honest.
It's interesting.
I think it's Church of Christ.
It's another rule added to things by people.
Yeah,
because humans got to ruin it.
The segmentation of Christianity, I think, is wild. Like so many,
and sad.
It is sad, yes. Plus, I think it's anti-biblical. I think if you read what Paul says, like, there are so many minor things. Like, obviously, if you don't believe Jesus was the Savior, maybe that's an issue we can divide over. But, like, let's chill out a little bit. Like, yeah. I think we've been way too fragmented. I think that also weakens our appeal.
Yeah.
Now, and I also don't think Christianity should solely be about... There's a big push, especially in Western society, about conversion at all cost, as opposed to discipleship and acts of service. Whereas in different breeds of Christianity, whether it be Catholicism or Orthodox, or even Eastern Christianity, I mean, you see a lot more Orthodox Christians in Eastern Europe. They might not convert that many people, which, I mean, I'm not saying conversion's bad. Like, it's obviously, I think everybody would benefit from being a Christian. But it seems like you don't see Christians building like hospitals and orphanages as much as they did in ancient days. I think the Catholic Church, for all its issues, I think they were really, really fantastic with that. I mean, how many universities and colleges and hospitals and orphanages and organizations have been founded by Catholics, or not necessarily Catholics, but like devout Christians. And so I think conversion is cool, but I think conversion can happen through being a positive force in the community, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think a lot of the, like, building orphanages and things, I think that has to do with the fact that back in the day, Catholics especially, they played essentially like a governmental role to an extent.
100%.
And they had way more influence than they do now. I mean, it was to the point where I remember this from my Tennessee Topics class.
TT for short.
Yeah. Tennesseans in the early days did not take well to Catholics.
Oh, they still don't. No,
they still don't.
There are certain people that I love very dearly in my life, who I will probably name after the podcast, hate Catholics.
The KKK,
one of their biggest... Now, obviously, they were racist, but they hated Jews and Catholics.
Yeah. And I think that mostly has to do with the fact that they see, like, this allegiance to the Pope as a replacement for governmental figures or even Christ.
They do. They believe that, from what a lot of anti-Catholic sentiment comes from, you're not actually devoted to Christ, you're devoted to some, like, structure.
Yeah. Which, and I mean, to an extent.
No, I'm not saying all, like, trust me, the Catholic Church has got its issues.
Yeah.
100. And I'm not a Catholic. But, yeah, it's just, again, it comes down to segmentation so much, too, you know? But.
Yeah. And sometimes I catch myself thinking, how different really are we? I mean, I was raised Lutheran. My grandmother was Methodist. My mother is a Baptist. I mean, I've been to a variety of services. There's a lot of overlap, and then there's a lot of things that maybe this one leaves out, or that one adds, or whatever.
Yeah, there's so much overlap.
It's all the same-ish.
Yeah.
Some of them drink wine, and some of them don't.
I know, and my dad has since came around a lot on this. He's loosened up a lot on this view, but...
Because your dad is a preacher.
My dad is a preacher at a Baptist church, but... This is so funny. In the Baptist community, my dad is seen as a liberal, which is hilarious. Hilarious.
Why? Because he's calm and he speaks with an open mind.
He's kind of more in the way we are. Like, a lot of our issues really aren't that big of issues. And, one time my dad, he wasn't asked to leave, but he felt he was kind of being pushed out a little bit of the church because he thought it was okay for interracial marriage.
What? That's so sad.
No, it's just
and
racist.
scary.
Yeah. So my dad is considered actually a liberal in some, which is unbelievable. But if you know my dad, I love my dad. My dad's literally my best friend. But anyway, he's loosened up a lot on what I'm about to mention. But we were doing like a family history project, and all, like most Southerners, all my family's like Scottish, Irish, English, just mixed. And a lot of them were Presbyterians from North Ireland / Scotland. And we have some Presbyterian ministers in our ancestry. And we even have an Irish Catholic dude from Limerick. And I was telling my dad that, and it was like...
Does not compute.
Telling him we had a mass murderer in the family. He's like, are you sure about that? And I was like, yeah, they weren't Baptist coming from, like, County Down and, like, County Antrim. They're not.
No.
Yeah, they're Presbyterians that have became Baptist. And again, he just loosened up a lot on that, but it was just funny.
I'm related to what used to be called Anabaptists, which are now Mennonites.
Out of Switzerland, yeah.
Yeah, and I have some family that live in Muddy Pond.
Are they Mennonites?
Yeah.
Shout outs to them.
They're like probably my third or fourth cousins, but they're still alive. They're still out there. The Schrock family.
Schrock. That's such an awesome Mennonite name. Yeah. Schrock, dude.
Guess what the name means?
Probably short.
Schrock?
I thought
it actually means jumps high and easily frightened.
It's like a rabbit.
Yes.
Interesting. Schrock.
And what's crazy is some of my Schrock cousins that I found online, they went to Switzerland to meet with our living relatives that are still there. Mm-hmm. That so place it's so beautiful. I mean,
Switzerland, no, it's great.
The original house is still there that they built in the 1400s that overlooks this valley in the middle of these beautiful mountains. The church that my entire family was baptized in is still there. And I'm thinking about this one stupid ass dude who said, "You know what? I think that babies need to wait until like they're old enough to know what they're doing to get baptized."
Which is a pretty based realization right there.
And that all of the babies that you've already baptized, it doesn't count, and they're actually in hell.
It's like, come on, dude. Why does there always have to be a negative?
So here is this dude who's walking around like, your baby that you baptized, but it died when it was a year old. Yeah, it's in hell now.
That's the thing.
And they all said, "Get out!"
All these like Christian subsects of people that are like. It's not only like, hey, you know, we used to be really hard on this. Really, if we reflect more on the Bible, maybe XYZ doesn't mean, well, okay, we can maybe drop that. There always has to be some caveat. It's like, and if someone else doesn't think we should drop that, they're terrible. It's like, why can't it just be like, they believe different, you know? That's, you know,
And, like, what's crazy is following this dude's journey where he took his family because they didn't want him around anymore because he was being a butthole. And then he moved to France. And then, like, 100 years later, they were still poor. So they're like, let's give America a shot.
Dude, Europeans are wild. It's like the 100 Years' War between, like, all the Germanic states and the Habsburgs and Britain, France, like... Norway, Sweden, all that. Like, everybody was fighting everybody. It's just over two different branches of Christians. Millions of people died. Civilians, soldiers, so many people starved to death.
Like, we aren't really that far removed from, well, definitely not far removed from religious extremism, but, like, okay... Take where my relatives lived in Switzerland. If you go up like 400 miles into Germany, you'll find this church. And it's a Lutheran church. Mm-hmm. It's a Lutheran cathedral. So it used to be Catholic. They took it over. It's our church now. And the whole region was Protestant. Mm-hmm. But during that switchover, It was very volatile. So basically, if they found some Catholics hanging out in town, they'd root them out and kill them. So that's great. But at this cathedral, I forget where exactly it is, there are cages that they drilled into the sides of the church where they would leave people to die. And they would rot in there, and they would leave their bodies for 30 years. And that happened in, like, the 1500s. And they were Lutheran. And
Dude.
then I'm, like, thinking about my Lutheran church in Harriman, where, like, you know, Mrs. Schubert brings, like, her potato casserole. And it's just like, what?
I mean, the entire history of Ireland is just them killing each other over basically being from the next town over. Which Ireland has a whole, like, colonial history. Like, they tried to replace... The whole term Scots-Irish, it came from where the English were trying to, like, replace Catholics. So they let a bunch of Scottish Protestants move into the north. So that's, you know, obviously an issue, getting your land stolen from you. But at the end of the day, they all just kind of became Irish. And it's just like... Part of me is like, let's just agree on something. Like, I don't know. No, Europe is wild with violence. Yes. Europe loves violence.
White people are wild.
Dude, whites are hilarious. We are. How did we get where we are? Well, we did by violence.
Yes. We're very good at that.
Gosh, whites are insane.
And there's a lot of us. So that's why there's so many colonies and things. They had to shove people out.
I think it's also because Europe didn't have anything. It's cold, it's rainy, so you have to look elsewhere. And it's small. So if you want to, like, expand...
Could you imagine a life before potatoes and corn?
Oh, no.
Or sugar.
No. Well, also, tons of people just died. They just didn't... They had a lot of bread, which is good. I don't know. I love bread.
Me too.
Dude, carbs, any diet... Atkins diet, if you're listening, the Atkins diet itself, if you were listening to this podcast, I want to fight you. I love carbs so much. If anybody tells me carbs aren't good for me, I'll destroy you. No. Oats and bread, no. Yeah, that's true, but potatoes, dude. The first guy growing potatoes, he was probably like, the game's changed. Also, I think it's hilarious to think the Dutch were like, our food tastes bad. Let's take over a quarter of the world.
Yeah.
So we can get some fancy salt.
Yeah. From
Indonesia. And they're like, oh yeah, millions of people will die because of this. They're like, okay. Yeah, I don't want my fish to taste bad anymore. So who cares about an Indonesian tribe that's uncontacted? We should probably go in there and make some contact.
Violent contact.
No, it was Europeans were on a tear there for a bit. They really were.
Should we talk about music with friends now?
Yeah, I guess. Where has this even went?
So I don't know if anyone else out there is a listener and a watcher, because, you know, you do audio-visual stuff.
Hopefully people watch.
Definitely lots of people. I know we got a couple people here with some questions for you that are watchers and awesome. Listeners. But Music with Friends, well, it started as an Instagram account, but now it's on TikTok, you said.
Yeah, I mean, it's just reposts. It's the same thing.
Tell me what it is.
Music with Friends started as a creative endeavor. Basically, I don't know how to, like, kind of describe it, but I have a... I feel like if I'm not being creative, I'm wasting my life in a way, because... through my work, I don't really get to be creative. I have a very good job that I'm very thankful for. I have a great company, but it is very much a day job, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with having a day job, but I'm very passionate about music, and I always have been. And again, we might get into some of the we've already talked a little bit about autism, but I'm a little autistic, and I know in January 1st of 2019, I found myself kind of wasting time during work. I can listen to stuff in my headphones, and I would just, like, be watching, like, stuff that wasn't necessarily enriched. It wasn't bad, but it was just like, why did I spend 2 hours listening to a documentary on the history of Bionicle or something like that? It's just like, it's interesting, but it's like, it doesn't And I'm like, music's always been an art that I'm very drawn to, and I've always enjoyed it. I've written music, I've produced music, I just know a lot about it. I'm tended to be pretty good at instruments that I've tried to play before. And so I was like, I want to expand my music taste. So every workday, I started listening to a new album. And I'm like, I could get through a lot of music this way. So, and I mean, I've been doing that every workday since January 1st of 2019. So it's been almost 5 years. So I've listened to thousands of albums. And I listen to a lot of music. I listen to a lot of music outside of that too. And I listened to a lot of music before that. And so I've been doing that for like 4 years at that point. And I was like, no one really knows I do this. This is just a spreadsheet only I have. And I don't want to like sound braggadocious here, but I'm like, I listen to more music than 99.999% of the U.S. population, and I know a lot about it. I'm like, I want to like talk about this at least a little bit. Plus, I don't know. I want people to like me at the end of the day. I just want people to like me. I like being funny.
I like you.
Thank you. And I was like, I want an avenue where I can talk about music, but also try to make jokes. I try to be funny on Music with Friends.
It's very good.
Well, thank you.
I think it's very funny.
I'm very self-confident. I'm like, no one's going to think this is funny. No
way.
I have no self-confidence. That kind of goes back to, I mean, to sound dark, kind of like depression stuff. But, so I was like, if I could somehow talk about music and attempt to be funny, I want to do it. So in, like June of 2023, I decided to make Music with Friends, where I was like, I'm just going to talk about albums I've been listening to, what I like, what I don't like. I want to hear recommendations from other people. I like talking to people about music. I like sometimes roasting people's music hot takes. I think it's always funny to do. And yeah, so it kind of came from there. And also at the time, I was kind of at a crisis where I realized my day job, though I'm very thankful to have it, I'm not fulfilled by it. And I was like, I was looking at different jobs at the time and just getting rejected from a lot of those jobs. So I was very frustrated. Didn't have any self-confidence. Still don't have a ton of self-confidence, but I was like, hey, if I'm stuck in a day job that, again, very thankful for, but doesn't really fulfill me, I at least want to try to make jokes on the internet. And I also realize we live in an age where if you do want to make jokes, it is as easy as posting them online. You know, you don't have to go out and like try to get radio interviews anymore. Or I'm not a comedian, but I like making jokes and I like music. And there's an audience out there for that, I'm sure, even if it's just my friends. So I decided to make it, and it's been really fun. It's also been a really interesting way to like, I didn't know social media was so like mechanical too. Like it really is just a machine that tries to turn content into places to place an ad. Yeah. I was like, oh wait, this video that I thought was really good doesn't get as many views as this one that I don't think is very good because I didn't use a hashtag right. What?
Analytics are fascinating and terrifying.
So no, it's been a lot of fun too. Plus, a lot of people have. Again, I don't have a lot of confidence, but a lot of people that have watched it said they really enjoy it. Even people that don't know the music I'm talking about, because I do talk about some obscure artists. They're like, it's really fun. Plus, people give me so many suggestions, and I love to hear that from people, but like I can't listen to them all, you know? But it's fun to talk about. Plus, music is an art. Music is an art form, I think, that people don't realize they're consuming. Like, if you were to talk to Johnny Hillbilly from, like, Morgan County, he's like, oh, art, that's for liberal hippies from the city. Blah, blah, blah. But he'll listen to Alan Jackson in his truck. He doesn't realize he's consuming art, you know? Now, Alan Jackson probably didn't go in, he's like, let's make art. But he's expressing himself.
Way down yonder on the Chattahoochee.
No, I love Alan Jackson. I'm not a big country music fan, but I really do love Alan Jackson. He's a C-to-E king. He has a neurological disease called C-to-E. Shout out to King. But I love Alan Jackson. But it's an art form everybody consumes. Not everybody goes to a museum. Not everybody can look at a logo and realize the artistic design that went into it. Not everybody likes film, but nearly everyone listens to music. And even if you go to, like, uncontacted tribes or, like, very primitive hunter-gatherers in Africa, they all make music.
Yeah.
And they make visual art, too. But I feel like it's a very base-level form of art. Plus, you ingest it while doing other things. Most people listen to music while they're working or working out. Or, I mean, you listen to it on a car ride. It's very good at evoking moods, like sad songs. Like a movie isn't really a movie without music, really, at the end of the day. So it's just an art form I've always found to be incredibly accessible and incredibly penetrative to the mass audience. So like fine art, only like 1% of humans ever see fine art, or honestly care about fine art, to be quite honest. But about every human cares about music, so...
I feel like music is so innate in that, I mean, there's a rhythm of the natural world, and there's even a rhythm inside our own bodies with our heartbeat. I mean, I feel like humans innately can recognize those things.
Yeah, and it's insane.
Yeah.
And it's so cool, too. It's all just waveforms. Mm-hmm. That's how, like, paint is all, like, art is all just the visual spectrum of colors, but you can do so many things with it. So, no, music definitely is, it's, plus it's poetic too. It's even, like, there's something animalistic to having, like, rhythm in, like, your body, but there's also a higher level there, cerebral, like lyrics, you know?
I think this ties in perfectly with our first question.
What?
Of the episode. Cassie Wise, a former guest and friend of the podcast.
Friend of Isaac Clarke as well.
Yes.
Love Cassie.
Wise Art and Designs asks, when did you start loving music?
Really, ever since I was born, or as old enough to, like, realize I was listening to music. This is so funny. My dad, when I was 5 or 6, gave me a Beach Boys Greatest Hits CD. Beach Boys also
As
are
he
awesome.
should.
Like, Beach Boys are incredible. I listened to that CD. I wore it out. Wore the CD out. I listened to it on a Walkman CD player on, like, every car ride for, like, 4 years. Just replaying it over and over again. I have a specific memory of building Bionicle at my house, listening to Beach Boys Best of CD. So I remember that. And in mid to late elementary school, I have both the privilege and misfortune of being on the internet really early in my life. And it was a young internet too, where, like, if you wanted to find something, you really had to go searching for it. And so I started listening to a band called Relient K and bands like All American Rejects and stuff like that when I was in, like, 3rd grade. And I would buy their CDs and just wear them out. I would play them for hours. And, like, in the evening, like, we only had one TV in our house, like, in the living room, and my parents were usually watching it. And I would just sit with, like, my Game Boy and play an All American Rejects CD all the way through, restart it, play it all the way through, restart it, play it all the way through. All of this while eating thousands of calories. I was a very chubby little boy, but almost in an obsessive way. And I would listen to all different kinds of lyrics or aspects of the song. And then anyway, once I kind of started using the internet, I was coming across circles that were usually inhabited by people way older than me. So, like, they would talk about bands like LCD Sound System and Death Cab for Cutie and Vampire Weekend when I was in, like, 5th and 6th grade, like, really young. And so I was basically reading Pitchfork, more or less, and in music forums. I didn't know how niche what I was looking at was. And I was just hearing the music. I'm like, okay, let me listen to this. I'm like, oh, this sounds different than what So, in, like, 7th grade, I bought, like, a Vampire Weekend CD from, like, McKay's. Wore it out on a CD player. Got an iPod in, like, 7th grade, an iPod Classic. And just filled it with so much stuff. And this whole time I was listening to, like, we would just play the radio in various ways in my life. So you would be exposed to stuff on the radio. But I got really into music like that people in their 20s were into when I was in like my early teens. So like it's so weird to think like a 12-year-old, and this is before people really had, there was no phone, so it's like it could happen today, but it was really weird at the time. Like I remember getting LCD sound systems, This Is Happening, when it came out, and I'm like listening to The Drop on Dance Yourself Clean on like my desktop computer. I don't know if you know that song, or if anybody listening knows that song, but just being blown away by it. And I mean, that music still holds up today, but so I was just exposed to a lot really early. I was exposed to stuff people usually get exposed to in college as a young child. So that kind of shaped my taste a little bit more. Like, kids, I've noticed, tend to follow more like music trends. Like, they are into what their friends are into, and that's very natural. But like, I was kind of not into, I was into stuff before it was cool.
You're different.
I'm not like most girls. So yeah, I just found myself getting into it, and then so all throughout high school, I regrettably went through a Mumford & Sons phase, which we all did. Listen, I'm glad I went through my Mumford & Sons phase at 14, so I didn't have to go through my Noah Kahan phase at 26. So, no, hey, listen, if you like Noah Kahan, respect. But
I'm also thinking of you in high school with those, like, I don't know, woodsy traveler shoes you always had on.
I still wear the woodsy traveler shoes, to be fair. They're Clark's boots. They're good shoes. They're made in England.
They
were
classic.
made in England. But no, yeah, I had a Mumford & Sons phase. And a lot of the music I listened to in high school I still listen to now. But I don't know. I was always a little bit, and it's not something I really talked about. I was always, I guess, a little bit more like, I won't say ahead of the curve, but more like in vogue with what was in.
You
like,
kept your
on the music
finger
trend.
on the pulse.
I kept my finger on the pulse without meaning to, just because I was in these certain internet circles from such a young age. And that just kind of carried on in through college and stuff like that. And then eventually we got to that age where the internet was prolific enough where I could watch either creators on YouTube or Instagram, or not even creators, just hear, oh, this band I like has a feature from this band. Let me check out their work. That's how I actually found out who Phoebe Bridgers was, because she was featured on a 1975 song. Oh. And I found out about the 1975 because they were featured on, I think they played on SNL one time, and I heard of them. So, like, one thing kind of leads to another, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if that even answered Cassie's question, but
I think so.
I've always been obsessed with music in one way or the other.
Well, I don't know if you know this person. Her name is Rick Lockhart.
She's an idiot. No, just kidding. That's my wife. Everybody.
Rebecca
My
Lockhart.
wife! Borat voice.
I have a chair. Rebecca Lockhart asks, what's the most enjoyable part of making music with friends?
Most enjoyable part is when I think I landed. There's certain I do struggle with self-confidence, but there's certain things I think I say that are really funny.
I agree with that.
And there's a part of me that's like, if other people, even if other people see this and think this is insane and stupid, I'm like, I think it's funny enough, and I believe in I think this joke is good enough. I don't care.
Yeah.
They're all missing it, and I'm right.
Boom.
And so that's really the funnest part. And just talking about, and I get to couch this joke I'm making in a topic I love, which is music. You know, that's probably the most enjoyable part. And usually those people tend to give me positive feedback. And then anytime somebody tells me I'm funny, that I kid you not, it is the greatest compliment on earth.
Well, you are. You're very funny.
That means so much to me.
You always have been.
There's a cousin of mine who is, we are so different. Just, she's like a homeschool mom. She's 40. I mean, I love her to death. She's great. But, I mean, we're just so different. Politically different, religiously different. But she's really cool. She tells me, she cracks up at all the jokes I do on music. She doesn't know any of the musicians, but she still watches them. I kid you not, that almost makes me cry thinking how much, like, I feel like there's almost a little bit of the discourse around, like, who cares what people think of you? Be yourself. And I get that. There's a legit need for that. But part of me is like, humans were literally, we've evolved to care what people think of us. Because it used to be, if you didn't care what this other chimpanzee thought of you, they'd rip your face off.
Yeah.
So, like, you have to care what people think of you. I legit want people to think I'm funny. Plus, I think of other, whether they be musicians, music critics, comedians, actors I enjoy. I think about how much they think, like, how, like, when I'm down, I listen to them, and it sounds so freaking cheesy, but, like, it legit makes me feel better. I'm like,
yeah.
I'd like to provide that for somebody else. I don't know. That's sad. And I almost cringe even hearing that, because this is just some autistic 28-year-old trying to make jokes about music on Instagram. But even if one person likes it, that means a lot. It really does. For real. People telling me it means a lot. That I cannot express this enough. That literally sometimes is some of the only... I tend to be very negative. I'm a very neurotic person. I'm very... Without the positive quirks, I'm very George Costanza. But knowing I do something that actually makes somebody happy means a lot to me. So, yeah. So, people telling me they enjoy the videos, plus sometimes I think I have legit good critiques. And there's been very limited times, but there's been a few times when the artist has actually... are you familiar with Dorian Electra? Mm-hmm. She reposted something of mine one time.
Oh,
and
really?
That meant a lot. And then she's a smaller artist named Jessica Lee Mayfield. She's like a folk artist, but she sits on the positive. There's a UK hardcore band called The Chisel that reached out to me. So knowing that they see my stuff is really cool.
Yeah.
But it also makes me think, like, if I have a negative thought, obviously I'm not going to, like, change my opinion because of who's going to watch. But at the same time, it's just neat to know they reach somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, connection and community is so important and so crucial.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think it's one thing I love about the internet is I've met so many people online that I very rarely, if ever, see on... Like, Sam Starkey. Sam Starkey lives in Austin, Texas now. I might see Sam again in 15 years. But I see what he does during his day. Mm-hmm. And that's awesome. You know? Like, the internet's really cool for things like that.
It is.
I didn't mean to get deep there. And I probably rambled.
Please get deep.
Yeah.
We have one more question.
Okay.
From someone else named Rebecca. Rebecca Vaughn this time.
Vaughn, goodness.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Rebecca Vaughn Ceramics asks, if it's not too late, thoughts on the Brat remix album?
It isn't too late. And at the time of me recording this, I don't know when this episode is actually going to come out.
October 23rd,
okay,
I think.
I have already filmed a low audio quality music with friends about this. But Brat, and it's completely different, but also still Brat, the Brat remix record. I think it's very, very good. I think it's a very good remix record. I don't think all of the collaborations on it were pulled off very well. I think the original Brat is better.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Some of them are so good. The Sympathy is a Knife with Ariana Grande. Have you heard the record?
I haven't yet.
Oh my gosh. You need to listen.
I'm a fake fan.
You need to listen. You're not a real Charlie fan.
I know.
Also, straight men Charlie fans, stand up, please.
Yeah.
I know of I know the gays love Charlie XCX. Mm-hmm. I love that. That's great.
And the girls.
And the girls and gays.
Yeah.
I'm neither of those. We need some straight. We need honestly, there should be a straight pride parade.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, honestly, why can't I go out there and have a straight pride parade? No. I really, really like the record. The Sympathy is a Knife with Ariana Grande is so good. I love that track. The honestly, the songs that I really liked before, I also just really like again. And then The Guest with Billie Eilish came out. That one's been around for a while. Girl So Confusing with Lord is one of my favorite songs ever. Mm-hmm. Also, I don't know if you're familiar with Young Lean.
Yeah.
Young Lean's featured on it on 360.
Dude.
Drops a killer verse.
Okay,
it's
that's actually sick.
Not all the features are good, though. I'm not a big Troye Sivan fan.
Really?
Don't like the song.
He was the only child actor to play Wolverine.
Okay. I don't know anything about, like...
Isn't that funny?
I guess. Yeah, he's very not Wolverine.
Yeah, I know.
He reminds me of a gay Abraham Lincoln, because he's just so tall and skinny. But anyway, I'm not a big fan of the song he adds. There's a Julian Casablancas feature from... He's the lead singer of The Strokes. It just shouldn't have been there. It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Have you heard Charlie's song with Troy, 1999?
Yeah, that's a good song.
I like that one a lot.
That's a pretty good song.
Yeah.
That's pretty good song.
Pretty good.
Yeah, Charlie's back catalog's pretty good, actually. Turns out, the artist I like a lot, I also like other music of hers.
Hard
No,
agree.
I love Charlie XCX. She's probably my favorite pop artist of all time. Probably.
Rebecca got to go to the Sweat Tour.
I'm jealous.
I'm so jealous.
I was going. Thing is, we had just seen Vampire Weekends. We'd spent a lot of money on concert tickets. Not a lot of money. The Vampire Weekend tickets are like $100 a piece. Mm-hmm. But the Sweat Tour tickets are like $500 a piece. I'm like, I can't do that because by the time my wife goes, it's like my wife goes.
My wife.
It's like $1,000, and
Yeah.
I would have so much fun. I already had my outfit planned out, so I know there's not a ton of straight dudes there unless they're there with their girlfriends. But I was going to wear my cowboy boots with my jeans,
Yes.
with a plaid shirt tucked in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't use any kind of nicotine, but I almost wanted to buy like a thing of like Altoids or Zen just to have in my back pocket so people
Absolutely.
know I'm legit. I think it'd be a fun countercultural move.
And it would have to be the green Zen.
The green's in, yeah, but
Yeah.
no, I would love to go to the Sweat Tour.
That would be so sick.
I was watching a video of Charlie's Boiler Room set. She did with, who was? I think A.G. Cook was with her, and this is so funny. The video is just a bunch of like gay dudes grinding on each other in the crowd. I was like, I would just be dancing, man. I want to be in there. This Boiler Room set goes so hard. So I think it'd be really funny. But no, I would love to go to the Sweat Tour. Rebecca Vaughn went?
Yeah.
Who'd she go with? Dalton?
She went with Kiki
I don't
my
know who
friend
Kiki
Kiki.
is. Okay.
from Punk Rock for
I
the
bet that
Market
was
Days.
so much fun.
Yes. They were serving.
Okay. I'm like, at first I was like, what were they serving? Because I didn't get the joke. I get it now.
Looks.
Serving looks.
But Rebecca sent me this video. There were a lot of influencers there, and you would
Great.
you would see them underneath like a helicopter-esque, like big, huge light, like a bright LED light that they would bring.
Dude,
so they
influencers
could
in the
do
wild
TikToks.
is awesome.
It's so crazy.
No. I say that as someone who is on Instagram and has an account that I want people to watch. So I guess in some ways maybe it comes from a spark of jealousy, but at the same time I'm like, I can't imagine the amount of pride I would have to swallow to bring a ring light in front of people.
So that you can do a choreographed dance whenever your
That's also something-
child survives RSV.
That is something I will say that I've never got the obsession with watching people dance.
Me neither.
I mean, if it's for you, cool. Like, I get it.
Some of the dances look really cool.
They do. No,
And then
I
I'll
can't
watch
do
like
them, though.
3 or 4 of them and I'm like, okay. I mean, I get it.
Yeah, I get it.
Let's go to the next thing now.
You can dance along to Apple, which it's a good
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
And you're a great dancer.
And
but
you're making your grandpa do it.
I bet the Sweat Tour was fun. I like Charlie XCX's community, too, because obviously it's very LGBTQ friendly. It's very LGBTQ
Built
friendly.
brick by brick.
Yeah, but also just along with that comes with like a lot of body positivity and stuff like that, which is a community I would rather be in than a community that doesn't value those things. So,
Yeah.
No.
Would you do coke with Charlie if she offered?
No, I'm very anti-drugs. No, I wouldn't. The reason I'm anti-drugs is because I would love them. I would love drugs. Trust me, I have like 6 mental illnesses. I would love drugs.
Well, I mean,
One time my dad dips tobacco, and he was like, if you ever want some, like, I can give you some. And I was like, I would love it. And
Ronnie, come on.
I can't be a dude that dips.
no.
I'm so not that vibe, but I would love tobacco. But
I
no,
feel like it would
no,
taste so
I
bad.
would. I probably would. But if Charlie offered me Coke, I would be like, "Hey, no, I appreciate it.
Thanks, girly.
Can
but
we hang
no.
out though afterwards?"
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's fair.
that's fair. Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why I'm grossly overweight. I mean, my drug of choice is just food.
Well,
If I was introduced to Coke,
thing
I
is with
don't know.
food though, you have to have it. That's the thing.
True.
Yeah.
A lot of my family members are power drinkers, so
Oh, really?
steered clear of that. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my grandfathers, he wasn't like an alcoholic, but he did drink probably more than he should have. But I just know myself, and I know like mental. No, I would get so into drugs. Drugs would be so awesome. I don't even like. That's something like the anti-drug movement. I wish they'd be like, listen, drugs are gonna feel good. Mm-hmm. Because most of the time they do. Let's be honest. But they will just ruin your life. Like.
One time I asked my dad, I was like, why do you think so many people around here from whenever you were growing up, you know, were so into drinking? And he's like, what else were we going to do?
No.
Didn't have anything else going on.
Yeah. No, I would just enjoy drugs so much.
Yeah.
They'd be so much fun. They would literally get rid of my problems. They would create massive new ones that are worse, but
Do you take drugs?
I'm prescribed medication for anxiety.
Hell yeah.
I don't need to just give up my prescription information, but it's a pretty low dose SSRI, so I do take drugs.
Okay.
Do take Tums every now and then. Got a little heartburn.
Yeah.
I have a very acidic. I love acidic. I have a very acidic diet.
Really?
I've always had heartburn. I think it's anxiety, to be honest.
Okay.
But I love Tums. I wish Tums were candy. I'd eat them like candy.
Are they? I mean, aren't they technically kind of?
I know there's.
I mean,
calcium
you probably
bicarbonate.
can't take more than like 4 or
Yeah,
5
it's
at
just
a
a
time.
calcium supplement. That's all it is.
Doesn't it foam though?
That's Alka-Seltzer. I think that's what
Okay.
you're thinking of. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. Honestly, it might be killing me, but I do take 2 Tums every day. I remember my cousin Connor Reed. He used to eat. He'd carry around Tums at school and just eat like a bunch every day.
How is he doing?
Connor's cool. Yeah, I still talk to Connor. Saw him yesterday actually. He's just doing good.
Good.
Married. Got a good job.
The only pills that I'm prescribed right now are iron supplements for
Really?
my anemia.
You got anemia?
Hey, yeah.
Dude, you need to get you some Cheerios. Got a lot of iron in those things. Do you eat meat?
Really? Yeah, I never buy any red meat for myself because
I
it's
don't
so
eat red meat.
expensive.
Yeah, I am actually a pescatarian, more or less. No, I am. I'm not even more or less. I just say I'm a pescatarian. I just eat. I love Cheerios though. Eat a lot of Cheerios. Got a lot of iron in there. How did we get taught? This is about drugs.
I don't know.
The question was, you asked me if I'd do coke, which Charlie actually asked.
Yeah.
Long answer, short answer, no. This is the long answer. Though.
What if she gave you her own Coke now?
No, man, I could do it.
Dang.
Plus, I feel like cocaine now, it's like some of it's got fentanyl in it.
Oh yeah, I think everything has been successfully laced with fentanyl. My cousin Grant, he smoked some weed that had been laced with fentanyl.
You've been talking about Grant. I kid you. Grant, if you're listening, Molly has been
Oh, he's
telling...
not. No way.
Molly has been telling me about your life since I was in 8th grade. She was in 6th grade. Grant has always been the archetypal, like, dude that just vibes out.
Well, he's not like that anymore because the fent got him.
Oh, okay. Actually, we were joking about that before, but I hate it. He's actually fallen into it.
Well, here's the thing. He smoked weed that was laced with fentanyl.
Oh, no.
And it caused him to develop seizures.
Oh, okay. Okay,
So
we were.
that sucks.
I want to be put on the record. I was joking about Grant before, but I'm very sad now.
But can I tell you? I need to tell you, though, I want to give you a Grant update.
Yeah, give me a
quite
GU, as
honestly-
we used to call him.
It quite honestly might be the last one.
Oh, okay.
But
Dang, I don't know how to look. There's a constant back and forth between this is hilarious and
because it is funny, but it's also sad.
yeah.
But also, he's not really a great person. He's always been very, he's been very mean to his family and his friends and his girlfriends forever.
Okay.
But he also has, probably more than one unchecked mental illness that has over time, and I think because of the fentanyl, I don't know, but
I've
probably.
heard fentanyl doesn't help mental illness.
Yeah.
You'd think it would.
You know. But he has become incredibly violent.
Ooh.
And so turns out, up until last year, his dad had been paying for his apartment.
How old is
This
he?
entire time. He is 36 years old.
Not a good look. Not a good look, Grant.
No. And he had been lying to us, apparently, this entire time about having, like, jobs.
Okay.
In reality, we really don't know what he does besides, like, get people, like, upset with him. And he has multiple, like, restraining orders against him.
That ain't a good look.
Yeah, and his dad has been trying to, like, level with him for years. And he finally got kicked out of his apartment, like, a couple months ago. Because his roommates were like, dude, we're all, like, chill, laid-back stoner types who work at restaurants. This ain't our vibe. Get out of here.
Yeah, the fentanyl addict vibe really isn't. It's kind of bringing the whole apartment down.
And so his dad put him in a motel
Okay.
for, like, a temporary fix until he could find, like, another place for him to go. He shows up. Grant has destroyed the motel room because he just remembered that his roommates probably took his weed.
Dude, you hate to get
You
to
hate
that
to
point.
see it.
Yeah.
And so he's like, get in the freaking car right now. We're getting out of here. You destroyed this place. So he gets in the car. They are on the interstate going 80 miles per hour. And Grant jumps out of the car and rolls down the interstate like a log. And his dad is like, oh my God, my son, he's going to get hit by a car and he's going to die. And so, he looked behind him in the mirror to look for him, and he was like, I don't know if he went under a tire or anything. Like, oh my God.
Why did he do that?
Why did he do it? And so he, like, calls the police to help him look for his son, and he, like, turns around and makes this big U-turn finally to, like, try and find him where he, like, made the jump. Mm-hmm. And all he found was, like, some blood.
Is he alive?
Yes! And he started running through the woods, and he ran through town. He ran through downtown Knoxville to his old apartment, and his roommates called his dad, and he was like, yeah, he's here. We found him.
What weed is this?
Turbo weed. And he had come back to, like, threaten them and say that they still had, like, some of his things or something. And his dad shows up with the police, and it's like this switch turns off in his brain, like whatever makes him so fucking crazy just turns off, and he just kind of, like, calms down, and he gets in the back of the police car and goes to jail. And they release him, and they put him in a halfway house, which, no, not gonna work. No. And now he has been showing up at his dad's house saying that, saying, how dare you do this to me? You keep showing up to the halfway house threatening to kill me in front of my friends. And he goes, Grant, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oof.
Yeah. And so he now has a order of protection against him. And he has been to jail twice for that. And then this week, the judge said, hey, bud, if you do this again, you're going to be in prison for 3 years. And he said, I bet. So now my cousin Grant is just loose out in the wilds.
He doesn't live at the halfway
No.
house? The fact Grant updates are still happening is so funny. He's still alive.
Tell me about this book that you wrote, because you're an
Yes.
author.
I wrote a book called Batchy's Busy Day over the course of, like, 2019 and 2020, illustrated by Molly Perry.
Hey, that's me.
And honestly, the illustrations definitely make the book. Why did I write it? Okay, I've always, like I said, I'm kind of a creative person in general. I've done a lot with music. I've always written, like, little short stories and stuff. I used to always write these books for my dad growing up. Like these just little storybooks, and I would illustrate them, and he would always act like they were great. Just fantastic.
Because he's your dad.
No, honestly, if I start talking about my dad, I will start crying. I love him so much.
I'm in that club as well.
I love my dad so much. And so I've always wrote stuff, and I've always liked the idea of everyone I've ever met with children talk about how kids will like lock onto like one thing. Like a little girl will watch Frozen every day for a year or something like that. You know how kids get. And I'm like, it'd be cool if a kid like read, that was like Batchy's Busy Day was their book or something like that. So, and I thought the idea of a children's book was fun because number one, it's easy to do, easier to do. And, I don't know. I just think it's, a cool mark, like being able to like give something that means something to a child, I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
So the character is super simple. He's just a circle. I wanted to intentionally made him a circle because it can be like nothing and everything at the same time. Mm-hmm. But all his friends are not circles. Anyway, I'm not going to give you there's no plot really. Batch is just kind of a goofball that messes up everybody's day. But anyway, so I had the idea for the story. I always wanted to write it, and I knew I wanted you to illustrate it because I was honestly afraid to ask anybody else because I didn't want anybody to judge me. I get scared people think I'm stupid. I am so scared people will think I'm stupid. But
you are not stupid.
But and so you did a great job, and towards the end of the writing process, I was most of the way done with the book. I was really experiencing a really dark time with my OCD, really terrible mental health during that time. It's great now. That was sarcasm, people. It's not great. But at the time, it was almost like crisis mode. And so I was driving back home from work one day, and I was just thinking, I didn't do the book to make money. I mean, it's not. Mm-hmm. I'm self-publishing it on Amazon. That's just basically throwing it in the trash already. I mean, for more or less. But so I was like, whatever money this does make, I want to donate some at least to like an OCD foundation. So I just donated to IOCDF. I don't really know what I tried to reach out to them to see if they could like officially like help like either list it on their website or something. I think there's something to do with like Amazon publishing. They can't do that. And also they're very bad at getting back with me. So the money might just be going to like fund some like war effort. I don't know where the money's going, but I'm donating it to them. The IOCDF, but
it's actually the IDF. Israeli Defense
Oh
Forces.
No! Wrong one. It's the Batchy funds the Iron Dome. But anyway, yeah, and I thought, listen, again, I'm not going to make a lot of money. I'm not going to make probably any money on this, but any money I do, might as well do it and give back a little bit. Plus, that gives me a way to like introduce it to people. I can be like, hey, I wrote a children's book, and some of it goes to this, as opposed to I just wrote a children's book. You know, it makes a little bit more of a talking point. So I did that. Everybody's really seemed to enjoy it. Actually, just yesterday, my cousin, who is in high school, started a psychology class, and her teacher has a 16-month-old little child, mm-hmm. and she gave them a copy of my book, and they really enjoyed it.
That's nice.
And all the therapists I've had have really enjoyed it.
Yay!
But no, I've legit only gotten good people have been so kind to. A buddy of mine that's got, you know, Jace Green.
Yeah.
His little girl likes the book.
I didn't know that he was a parent.
He has a child now.
That's cool.
Marion has a kid. She really enjoys the book. So, yeah, plus it's been a good avenue. Like, even I got featured on, like, some local news outlets just talking about OCD in general. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Rachel Pearson, friend of the podcast.
You mean Pearson.
Pearson.
Rachel Pearson.
She has a question. What was the process of publishing your book? And do you have any other books planned in the future?
So, books planned in the future, I don't have anything planned. I mean, I'll probably write something again someday, but no, to answer your question immediately. As far as the process of publishing, it's pretty, I have to admit, like, Bezos, for all his faults, pretty easy to self-publish a book on. It was very user-friendly.
Jeff Bezos, friend of literacy.
Jeff Bezos, good friend of mine, buddy of mine, hung out at Burning Man earlier this year. Loves rockets, that guy.
Chronically divorced.
Loves being divorced. Really into divorce. It's big divorce guy. But it was very easy. You basically create an account with Kindle Direct Publishing. That's what it's called. And the way I did it, and I imagine it's easier even if you write a book without illustrations. You just upload your Word document. Now, I had to upload the Word, like, what's a software you use called Microsoft Publisher. I had to upload that document because I had pictures, but you just upload that and it kind of does the rest. You can select hardback, paperback, this, that, or the other, like where you want it distributed at. So, or like what it's distributed from Amazon, but like which countries and what languages you want it in and stuff like that. So, Kindle Direct Publishing, look it up. But my wife's outside. I was looking out the window. I'm like, who is that? But she's outside on the porch. It's very easy. I wish I had a longer answer, but Kindle Direct Publishing, there's tons of videos out there.
I've heard it's pretty handy.
Help you do it. Yes, I would say to anybody that thinks they will want to write. My dad's talked about writing a book. My dad's like a biblical scholar. He studies the Bible for hours a day. Again, maybe autism runs in the family.
Yeah.
But he's always talked about wanting to write a book. And part of him's like, do it. And he's like, I don't know if I'll have anything to say. And I'm like, if it's bad, do it anyway. Like, there's tons of bad books out there. Worst case, nobody reads it. So,
plus there's tremendous value coming from the exercise itself.
yeah.
Just doing
it taught me so much. So, if you are tempted to write a book, please do it. Or at least try. Just write in general, because it's very fun. And yeah, it was very fulfilling to me, and I kept it a surprise from all my friends, so that was really cool. Plus, I'm very fortunate to have a lot of creative friends, and they actually work in creative fields, whether it be graphic design, video production, and stuff. And they're like some of the best at their field in like the country. They've been like recognized on like a national level. So, and I have a great job, but it is very much a day job, and I wasn't getting a creative outlet, and that kind of helped me do that. So, yeah, I hope that answers the question. Also, Rachel Pearson, ask her this question. Her cosplay is awesome, by the way. I didn't realize she had like a TikTok. And
it's
I looked
crazy.
at it, I'm like, this is insane to make. Yeah, that's awesome.
She's so talented and diligent in her work.
Cosplay is one of those things I think it's interesting that I literally cannot tell you how little interest I have in it, but just seeing how passionate she is about it makes me like interested in it.
Yeah.
It's like she converted me. Like,
yeah, you're a believer.
I was like cosplay, okay, whatever, it's not for me. But seeing Rachel do it, I'm like, Rachel's so passionate about it, I respect it now. Not that I didn't respect it before, but like, it's not just a bunch of furries. No. So no, her cosplay is awesome. So
yeah, I
answers that question.
agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, okay, you mentioned going on the news and talking about OCD and stuff, and you know, you said that you were going through a hard time with it while writing the book. What is something that you would want people to know about OCD? Because I feel like it's one of those things that, like we were talking about earlier, like autism and ADHD, people just kind of like take it.
Yeah. OCD, so obsessive compulsive disorder, if you didn't know. Honestly, I feel like we've gotten a little bit better at this in the past few years, but it's not just like a need for order or anything. It is where you obsess on a thought and compulse to either negate that thought or make the anxiety go away. And usually those obsessions are what's called ego dystonic, meaning they go against your values. So, let's say you're a devout Christian, your obsessive thought might be like, what if I hate God? Or what if I'm an evil person or something like that? And to prove you are not evil, you might compulsively pray. So the actual issue is the compulsions, not the obsessions, because everybody has obsessive thoughts. Like a common example is if you've ever like looked or like stood on like a cliff at like a national park or something. A lot of people have the intrusive thought of, what if I push somebody over this? Or what if I jump off? That's normal. It's a normal thought. what an OCD person would interpret that thought as, I must really want to, or I must be secretly a killer and want to push somebody off. And so you compulsively either tell yourself you're a good person, or you might, quote unquote, tempt yourself. You might stand next to the cliff for a long time just to prove to yourself that you won't do it, stuff like that. So obsessive compulsion is not just having a need for order. That can be an example. That can be like something you do. But for example, the hand wash example, like Howie Mandel. Howie Mandel is obsessed that people are dirty or have germs on them. So he shaves his head. He's not bald. He shaves his head.
Really?
Yeah. He might be bald now, but he initially shaved his head. He washes his hands a lot. That's his compulsion to negate his obsession. Howie Mandel, for all his quirks, he's done a lot for OCD. But OCD is a lot more than that. It's a lot more in your mind than in the physical world. I think a lot of people think you have to have a physical compulsion. And I've had my fair share of physical compulsions. I still triple check the stove every day. But also, a lot of your obsessions are in your mind. And they tend to go into incredibly dark places, whether it be violent, just pretty disgusting thoughts and beliefs about yourself. My OCD tends to focus on the past. Like, I've hurt someone in the past. And I obsessively try to remember whether I've done that or not. It sounds so crazy. You know if you've done that or not. OCD has a way of convincing you, maybe you did and you just don't remember.
Wow.
Are you sure you did? Are you sure? It's called the doubting disease. And so to negate that obsessive doubt, my brain goes back and like remember. And it doesn't have to be violent things. It can be, did you cheat? Were you mean to somebody in the past and now they'll never forgive you? What if you're mean to them and you've contributed to the reason their life is so bad and stuff like that. And so you compulsively try to remember and check every detail to make sure you haven't. And it can be exhausting. And the reason you're obsessed with that anyway is because that's against your character. Like, usually people with OCD are actually very kind people. Yeah. And they would never want to hurt somebody. That's the whole reason they're bothered by it. Like, an actual psychopath isn't bothered by the thought of, what if you've hurt somebody in the past? They don't care. They don't care if they've hurt somebody in the past. I could talk about OCD forever, but it's commonly associated with things like depression and in my instance, it's helped. I probably would have had an eating disorder anyway. It's helped kind of lead to an eating disorder that I've got decently under control. I don't have like I'm not severely impaired by my eating disorder, and that I kind of have my therapists have described to me as like an OC. There's like a Venn diagram of like 3 circles, like autism, eating disorder, and OCD. There's a lot of overlap there. A need for control, obsession to detail, and like compulsivity. Those 3 disorders in particular are very, like, people with OCD are more likely than any other person, like just an average person, to have autism. They're way more likely to have an eating disorder. Way more likely to have depression. I don't have depression as like a diagnosis. I get depressed a lot. I get depressed more often than other people do and for longer. But I don't have like major depression. I don't want to like claim that. Like I've always been able to work and stuff like that. But I don't know if that even answers the question. OCD is terrible. OCD is awful. It's not something cute to say like, oh, I get it. Most people that say like, oh, I'm kind of OCD about that. They don't mean that in a bad way. They don't really know what they're saying. But OCD is horrendous. It is a complete detriment to almost every aspect of my life. I'm very much don't want to like be like, but there's a silver lining. There's not a silver lining.
Yeah.
It's at the end of the day, it is part of what my brain struggles with, and I've met a lot of cool people through it, and everyone I've ever told has been so freaking awesome about it. In high school, I'd literally told my best friend Isaac Fowler. I think I might have told somebody else, and I told some other close friends. And I was so nervous about telling them, and they were so cool about it. And if they're listening, they're probably not. But if they are, they don't know how much that meant. I thought people were going to freak out because I was telling them some pretty wild, pretty wacky stuff. Not wacky, but you know what I mean, like pretty dark stuff. And they were so understanding and cool about it. And yeah, that still means a lot to me.
Yeah.
Today. Yeah.
What does treatment look like for OCD? Is it kind of like reassurance or
No, that's actually that makes the cycle worse.
Okay.
Yeah. Because reassurance is what your compulsions provide you. You compulse to get reassurance. Treatment is a combination of usually SSRIs, which are antidepressants. Honestly, physical exercise, I don't mean to, it always kind of sucks to be the guy that's like, yeah, if you just get out and move, like, all your problems go away. If you ice bath in the morning and don't use seed oils, all your problems go away. I don't ice bath, and I love seed oils. I'm big into seed oils. Shout outs to them. Shout outs canola. Shout out peanut oil. All that stuff. I don't even know if peanut oil is a seed oil, but treatment is SSRIs. Exercise helps me so much. It really does. Again, I kind of have that kind of bleeds almost a little bit into my eating disorder, but for 99% of my association with exercise is very positive. And cognitive behavioral therapy, specifically what's called exposure response prevention therapy. I've never had exposure response prevention therapy because it's very hard to access. And I'm someone that has a lot of access, or more than average access to mental health treatment, and I've never been able to find somebody that does ERP. And exposure response prevention is easier for physical compulsions. I don't really have too many physical compulsions. I've personally seen very positive results from what's called EMDR therapy. Plus, honestly, sometimes, and I'm a little older now, so my OCD spirals, I've played the game before. Every time, I don't know if you've ever dealt with this, but like with mental illness, you feel like it's, this one's the big one. This one's the depressive spell, OCD spell I'll never get over. But then when you finally do, you're like, oh yeah, that's the same thing my brain's been doing since I was like a young adult. So, yeah, honestly, sometimes therapy, just talking, just having somebody there to like reassure you you're not insane is good. If I had to tell anybody though, I would say go to therapy and exercise and talk to your therapist or primary care physician about medication. Do not go straight to medication because in my experience, medication helps, but it helps very little. It helps me usually just enough to where, like, I'll notice if I'm not on it, but it is very far from a magic bullet. Yeah. Very far. It takes the edge off, I would say. Yeah, where most people go out for a cig, I'll go out for a quick little SSRI and pop it. It's not really how I take it. I take it every day in the morning, regularly. But
turn up.
Yeah, so I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah.
But, yeah, OCD really sucks, and it's been a very big detriment to my life. But not due to OCD itself, but from my efforts to either mitigate it or tell others about it, I've had some beautiful interactions with people.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So, a lot.
That's cool.
It's taught me a lot of seeing other people's reactions when I tell them I have OCD, especially when I was first telling some really early people, like in high school. Seeing their reactions has helped shape how I've reacted when other people tell me, quote unquote, wild stuff. Even though it's not wild, it's just people with mental illness telling me stuff, you know. So, I don't know if that says anything.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers the question.
That was great.
So,
Thank you for sharing.
Oh, yeah. And we talked about like self-diagnosis stuff. There is a lot of self-diagnosis out there, but if you are somebody that has previously self-diagnosed and been like, there might be go get tested. Like, talk to a therapist. You might actually have it. I don't want to completely pass off self-diagnosis as a thing.
It's definitely worth looking into.
Yeah. Before I knew I had OCD, I looked up the symptoms and I'm like, man, I probably have this. And guess what? A therapist was like, yeah, you do.
Boom.
And a doctor was like, yeah, you do. So, I mean, go for it and see if you can get some help. So, yeah, I don't know.
I went to a general practitioner for the first time recently. I haven't had one for probably 10 years because of college, and like I think the only time that you really have to see one like before high school is whenever you get your sick kid shot.
So this is just like a doctor?
Yeah.
You haven't been to the doctor in 10 years?
No.
I know. Molly, you got to go to the doctor. Okay, it's okay. You're on it now.
I come from a family that does not do that. They'll go to the dentist, they'll go to the eye doctor, everything else.
Those two are important, but less important than the actual. See, I was very sick as a little. I had a technically incurable kidney condition as a child, and I've been in long-term remission since I was 4, but I spent a lot of time at the doctor. So, no, my family's been mega pro doctor.
I mean,
we love the doctor. Shout outs to Dr. Blitz in Harriman.
Yeah.
Shout outs Kingston Family or Roane County Family Practice. Yes. Shout outs to those kings.
I mean, we definitely value medicine and healthcare.
Plus it's a hassle. You got to schedule. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
And I mean, honestly, before like entering high school, I went, annually, like every kid does. Mm-hmm. And then I think another thing, I never got sick. I've always been a very healthy person.
Yeah, I really have gotten. I maybe get like sick once a year, to be honest, and it's just like a little cold. You did go to the hospital recently.
Yes.
I think we're getting there.
Yeah,
but continue.
My pediatrician, I don't even remember his name. I was never sick, and I never went. So I think whenever I did get sick, whenever I was maybe 10 or 11, they didn't even have my information anymore. Because I wasn't there.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I have a general practitioner now. Shout out Dr. Wilcox. She's cool. I walked in there looking for, a direction to go in with my depression and anxiety, which I've never had diagnosed.
Sure.
But as soon as I started talking to her, it's like everything was just at the surface. And I just started crying. And I was like, I feel crazy right now. You just met me. I'm so sorry about this. She's like, it's fine. We know that you're depressed.
No, it's you've described my experience like crazy. Like, no, I know when I was talking to a therapist of mine about possibly having autism, I'm like, I was telling her about all the music with friends stuff I do, and I'm like, also, there's this thing is like, if anybody touches my back, I freak out, and if I don't use the same tiny spoon and bowl every evening when I eat oatmeal, I get mad. What is that? She's like, oh yeah, that might be autism.
She said, I'm going to hold your hand when I say this.
And then she told me, I was like, that makes sense.
It's nice to have that, though.
No, and some people don't need a diagnosis, and I totally respect that. And, like, also people, too, I think, don't realize that, like, you might not have to have a diagnosis. Just because you don't have a diagnosed mental health issue, like, if you go through one depressive episode in your life, you don't have depression. Mm-hmm. But that's not to negate the fact you went through one rough episode,
Yeah.
So...
Well, it's like whenever my grandfather died, my granny got on depression medication for like a year.
Yeah, and
needed to pick me up.
Sometimes a diagnosis helps because it makes you feel not insane.
Yeah.
No, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, like I feel like mental health, like depression and anxiety for sure. Like it's so cyclical, and I can feel myself getting stuck and the same things over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that through therapy and maybe medication, if they think I need it, it'll pick me out of those ruts.
Yeah.
Also, she thinks that I have hypothyroidism.
Okay, I'm kind of too stupid to know what that is.
I wasn't entirely clear on it, so I'm just waiting for her to get the test results back on Monday and see what's up.
Okay.
It's probably a hormonal problem.
But, no, yeah, getting a diagnosis is definitely game-changing. I know I used to, especially with eating disorder stuff, I was like, I'm never eating meat. All my friends go out to a restaurant because I'm afraid if I have the mac and cheese, I'm going to get fat. And I've tracked my calories every day for 2,000 days in a row. That's true.
Wow.
Now, to be fair, I kind of enjoy doing that, but also it's, it's a little bit of eating disorder. And so I told my therapist that. She's like, yeah, that's not normal. But I was like, I don't have an eating disorder.
I'm just so healthy.
Yeah,
I'm just so aware.
Yeah, I just get upset when I don't work out every day and track my calories and stuff like that. And she's like, yeah, that's kind of an eating disorder. Plus, she's like, you have OCD. Those two are literally like best friends. And you're autistic. And again, I don't want to turn this into like some pity party. I have a great life, please. I have access to. I'm not a mentally healthy person. I will be the first to admit that. But I have such a loving support system. I've got, like, my dad is born in the 60s and it's crazy for someone born then to be so compassionate about my mental health as he is. Because honestly, I don't think he's got maybe a diagnosable condition, but he's had a lot of mental health problems, and he's had a lot of friends of his that have had mental health problems.
I bet that he could probably relate on some issues
he totally
as well.
Can. He totally can. And, yeah, I don't know what I would do if I didn't have people like that in my life. So, I mean, again, I've got a ton of, I'm very mentally unhealthy. I don't want to like negate my own problems. But I think equally matched with that is I have in my opinion, I couldn't have better people around me.
That's awesome.
And I've got a job that, one thing, I work for a government contractor, not in the Department of Defense. I want to make that clear, because usually when people say they work for a government contractor, they're working for Lockheed Martin or Raytheon. Or from Parker that built like machine guns or whatever he did.
I work in the gun factory now.
Yeah. I work with a non-military government contractor. And so usually the pay's, I'm very blessed, but I don't get paid a ton. But dude, those insurance bennies,
yes,
they strong, dude.
It's legit.
And I wear them out.
These glasses were free, dude.
Yeah. Private sector, you get paid a lot, but then you have to pay like $350 to go to the doctor. The good thing is, though, is that to get basic health care in this country, you have to work. That's really good.
Yeah,
I think
you have to deserve it.
Yeah, I'm glad that if someone can't work for some reason, they don't deserve the doctor. That's my stance, folks. Just kidding.
Hey, so we're getting close to running over on some book club meeting time.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
But I do want to finish out with a really good question.
From Cole?
From Cole Heaton.
Shout-outs to Cole. A legend. Brought Tekken for a party one time. A highly technical fighting game that no one except him knew how to play. And he just destroyed everybody. That's one of the funniest moves. For a party, we had Mario Party, and Cole comes in with Tekken, and we somehow start playing Tekken, and everybody, Cole is just demolishing everybody. It's so funny. It's such a baller move.
You should see him play Smash. It's like,
does he play Melee or Ultimate?
Melee. I guess maybe both. I don't know.
Cole, if you're listening to this and you're a Fox main, let me know.
He holds the GameCube controller a specific way.
Yeah, they hold it with their finger, like up like that. Does he use a fight stick? Has he ever used a fight stick?
I don't know.
Oh. No, Cole's awesome.
He has a question about Pokemon for
Absolutely.
you. Ever the linguist and avid 60s television show watcher, he asks...
Cole's so funny.
He's awesome. What Pokemon do you think gets too much guff? Any that you think deserve more guff?
Okay, I don't know what guff is.
I think that guff is like kind of just like BS, like maybe blowing smoke up your skirt or something.
So like too much hype?
Yeah.
Which Pokemon gets too much hype? I love Pokemon. I've applied to so many jobs at the Pokemon company. They do not hire me.
Oh.
Probably because I don't have a lot of skills. No, just kidding. I do have skills. I have a pretty actually high certification. Still won't hire me. If you work for Pokemon and listen to this, which you don't, probably. Hire Isaac Clarke. But anyway, I love Pokemon. Pokemon's great. But I mostly follow competitive video games, so I don't really do the trading card much. But the most overrated Pokemon. I think Charizard's a little overrated.
Okay.
Charizard's big right now because he's very popular with kids. So the Pokemon Company pushes Charizard as a character, and they've kind of made him a lot stronger in the games because they want kids to play the games. It's almost like this company wants me to spend money. Charizard, I think, gets a little too much guff. A little too much guff.
Agree.
Not enough guff, which is an underrated Pokemon. It's honestly pretty popular, but Arcanine needs to be higher rated.
He's pretty cool.
What's another one? Honestly, Amoonguss, in terms of competitive, he's used a lot, but he deserves to be used more.
I've never thought about how similar it sounds to Among Us.
Well, this came out before Among Us, number one. It's a fungus. It's a very tanky grass poison type kind of defensive wall. Gets Regenerator, Pollen Puff, Spore. It get access to so many moves. You can run a Citrus Berry on it. Honestly, it's popular already. It's got a good amount of guff, but it deserves more. Amoonguss is great. Let me think of one more, and then I'll quit talking. I could talk about Pokemon
Please do.
all day. I think Porygon 2, holding an Eevee.
Yeah.
It's a good Pokemon we all love. Now, those are just for competitive features. In terms of just being cute, there's so many cute Pokemon. Oh
I agree.
gosh,
I think, honestly, Pikachu is a fantastic character
mascot.
design.
Fantastic character design. Perfect. No, I wish he needs to be fat again. Need to make Pikachu fat again. The Pokemon brand itself has tried to push Eevee a lot in the past couple of years, which Eevee's cute. Love Eevee.
And he's got so many flavors.
Got so many evolutions. So yeah, Pokemon is fantastic.
Who is the little water dog that evolves into a drag queen? He's a dog, and he has a fish tail.
Popplio that evolves into Primarina?
Yeah.
Dude, speaking of competitive Pokemon, Primarina with Liquid Voice turns any normal move into a water move. You could use Hyper Voice, Moonblast. You can run that a lot of different sets on that. Put an Assault Vest on that thing.
Yeah.
You got a bulky wall that can dish out pretty good damage. Primarina is pretty cool. Popplio is a little annoying looking though.
He's so cute.
Water Dog is a good way of phrasing it.
He's my favorite.
Turns into a drag queen. I don't view Primarina as a drag queen.
Well, doesn't it, like, regardless of, like, the gender of the Pokemon? I mean, it always looks like a little, little mermaid lady.
Primarina is a starter, or Popplio is a starter Pokemon. All starter Pokemon have an 87.5% chance of being male in the game. So, yeah.
Why
I know
is
the gender
that?
ratios of a lot of Pokemon. I don't know. I think it's because Pokemon started out in Japan, mostly played by little boys, and they wanted... Genders didn't come into Pokemon until the second generation of Gold and Silver, and I think they wanted more... They just knew their audience was mainly male. Most Pokemon do have a 50-50 gender rate, but I think they knew their clientele. Yeah.
I also really, really like Poliwhirl because he has big gloves
No, Poliwhirl's awesome.
and little feet,
I like Poliwhirl.
and he's so mad.
Poliwhirl, then what's the middle evolution? Poliwhirl. No, there's Poliwhirl, then there's Poliwrath. Poliwrath's the one I'm thinking of with gloves.
Yeah.
The Poly.
Okay, yeah, that one.
That evolutionary line is really, really good. No, Pokemon's great.
Big frog dude.
Yeah, Pokemon's awesome.
There's a Nicki Minaj Pokemon.
Which one? I asked that with a little aggression. Yeah, I was like, which one?
Is its name Jinx?
Jinx. Oh, yeah. They had to change Jinx's design in the first generation because the face was black, and it got accused of being blackface.
Yeah.
That was around, though, before Nicki Minaj. Actually, we should actually be saying there was a Jinx female rapper named Nicki Minaj. So.
Well, Isaac, I want to thank you for coming on.
I could talk on this podcast forever.
Did you have a nice time?
So much fun. If you ever are like, man, who do we have lined up? We don't have any more guests. I'm running out of guests. Please contact. I kid you not. I will drop everything to be on a podcast. Aww. It's a white man's dream, honestly. Really, honestly, no one's had it harder.
That mic got in your hand
Yeah.
and started levitating.
Yeah, no one's had it harder in this country, really, than white men. And I'm glad with podcast, we have a way to air our grievances.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
And we'll get out of Rebecca's hair so that she can have her book club meeting.
Yeah, Rebecca, my wife. Thank you to everyone that listens to this. Molly, thank you for having this podcast. It's been very. I was an avid listener. Now I'm a guest, but it's really. I really enjoy your podcast.
Well, thank
Please
you.
take that to heart. And anybody that listens to this / enjoys my music with friends stuff / if you work at Pokemon, thank you so much for enjoying my stuff. It means so much to me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm definitely an enjoyer.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, we'll see you.
We'll see you.
Bye.